I'm Larry Menti. Welcome to Another Thing. We are on location this week at the Trenton Police Headquarters because we want to talk about local police departments and new technology available to them to get information on you. It's supposed to keep them safer, but what about your privacy? Advocates are concerned about that, and we'll have a conversation in just a moment with the director of the Trenton Police Department. But first, Ellen Kaloje has a report about new technology, a new piece of software that determines your threat level by using your social media account and other public information. Ellen.
Thank you, Larry. Very few police departments around the country are actually using this software called Beware that calculates a person's threat score. Police out in Fresno, California are the first ones in the country to test it out in the field. And the head of the Police Chiefs Association here in Delaware, well, he says any department would love to get their hands on this.
You can't have too much information when you respond to a scene. The more the officer knows, the safer it is for everybody responding and everybody at the scene.
Bill Bryson has been the police chief in Camden, Delaware for 15 years. He thinks having access to a person's threat score would be a huge help to all police officers. The software takes someone's information and calculates their potential for violence. A company called Intrado uses billions of data points, including arrest reports, property records, commercial databases, deep web searches, and social media postings to come up with the number. But they won't tell the public or the cops exactly how they come up with that score. Now, local chapters of the ACLU all around the country call this software disturbing and say it violates privacy rights, especially since no one really knows how the score gets calculated. And we talked to one group in California called the Electronic Frontier Foundation, and a lawyer with that group says this movement has been building since 9/11. Jennifer Lynch with EFF says that funding first went to the military to develop this technology, and now it's come back to domestic law enforcement. It's the perfect storm, she says, of cheaper and easier to use technologies and money from state and federal governments to purchase it. But Chief Bryson can't understand why anyone would have a problem with how that threat score is generated.
It's all public records or police records, which we have access to anyway. If they don't want the information gathered, don't put their information on the public records. It's kind of like Facebook and law enforcement. They just don't go together. And if you don't want law enforcement and everybody to know what you're doing, then don't put it on the internet.
Police out in Fresno, California, actually using this software in the field, well, they agree and say all these concerns about privacy are overblown. They say they only use the threat score as a guide to help them deal with a dangerous situation. Reporting for Another Thing, I'm Ellen Kaloje.
All right, thank you, Ellen. Now we continue our conversation on local police forces and increased technology and concerns about privacy with the director of the Trenton Police, Ernie Perry. Thank you so much for doing this, and welcome back to the show.
No, thank you very much for having me, Larry.
So this Beware software, it's not something you're using?
Not currently, no.
But you checked into it?
I did. I looked into it. I found it very intriguing.
Intriguing to the point where you want it, or intriguing to the point that it's something that you might think about in the future?
It would definitely be something we'd think about in the future after, looking into it to see what it all entails.
And you talked to the company?
No, I actually just went onto their site.
Oh, I see.
And they're very discreet in the information that they put to the consumer, I guess, until you're ready to be more involved in the process, I guess.
Yeah, now they've talked about that. They've actually talked about the reason they're so protective is because they don't want other companies to steal their algorithm. They don't want other companies to be able to do what they're doing. They want to just own this business. Right. So it makes a lot of sense. I know you read the article about in the Washington Post about Beware, which is the name of the software.
Right.
Do you have privacy concerns when it comes to this software?
I do. I'd like to know more about where they're actually gleaning their information from, how that information is ultimately being filtered, especially over a course of time, because we're talking about addresses, we're talking about the population in especially a lot of your urban locations, very transient. So you want to make sure if you're going to that address where these people allegedly are living, that's kind of information that always has to be updated and refreshed. So that would have some concern for me as to, like I said, where they get the information from.
Right. One of the concerns that's brought up, I think, in the article, and is brought up by some privacy groups, and I talked to a constitutional attorney about this, is exactly how they're gleaning that information, especially from social media. Because if you are putting in, let's just say you like some new video game, and you say, in this video game, I killed a cop. In one of these awful games like, I don't even know the names of them. That pops up. Right. That could pop up, and all of a sudden your threat level is increased when you would never really do that. You might not be a violent person. And since the company's being so secretive about how they do this, would that hold you back unless you knew exactly what they were telling you and what the threat level was?
Yeah, I think I'd want to know more. I don't think, if whatever, like you talked about, whatever algorithm they're using or whatever to put all the information together, there has to be factors that act as like a force multiplier. It's not just one thing, like that one statement. And I know there was a concern. I also watched a video from California, and I know one of the concerns was, I believe, one of the people that keyed on this software, she made some reference to a card game, but it had some kind of crazy name to it, Rage, yeah, right? And it raised the threat level. I think you need a culmination of things to make sure that level is actually accurate. And again, informational purposes only. The officer is going to go out there. I think it's a great idea. I think, especially in today's day and age with everything that's going on, not only nationally but globally, I think that more information, especially to law enforcement, is better. This comes down, and I'm a big proponent of, people's rights, their right to privacy, but we also have a right to safety. And when you see incidents, whether it be on the East Coast, whether it be San Bernardino, where you have these folks that are out there that are committing these crimes, if there's stuff on social media that can be taken, out of the airwaves, I'm sorry, but I would be a proponent.
Because it's public. If it's on social media, you're putting out there.
You're putting out there. You're the one that's out there. You're saying, this, that, and the other.
It's interesting because this constitutional attorney that deals with police departments and especially municipalities put it this way, and tell me if you agree with this. He said it all depends on why you're getting the information. If you're just going out to get it, to keep information on people, well, that's wrong. But if you have reason to believe that person's doing something wrong and the police are going there anyway because of a domestic violence call or because they there's a warrant out for their arrest, then he said they're fair game. At that point, it's the reason that makes it okay to look into their privacy. You can't just do it on your own because you're interested and you want to keep a list of the dangerous people in your area. Would you agree with him on that?
Partially. You don't want to have a fishing expedition, especially within your town. You don't want, it's a very, very thin line that a police department walks along with its community. And you stray over that line, and those relationships that you've built over time, they get damaged quite easily. So, the public just has to understand that it's not only in the interest of the police department, it's primarily in the interest of the public. The public has to have that sense that, I'm here and I'm going to be safe. You shouldn't have to worry about attending a Christmas party and bad things happening. And I think, we see it so far away that sometimes we say, well, that's across the country. It didn't happen here. But you just never know with everything that's going on again.
Yeah, I get it. It's interesting you said partially, though, because the Portland, Oregon Police Department is being investigated right now because they use social media and they went after the hashtag Black Lives Matter and started creating a list based on that so they would know who was involved with the movement, because they were a potential threat, they thought, because they were protesting and they wanted to know who they were out. They're being investigated right now. That's a civil rights investigation. Did they go too far?
that's a slippery slope. You know, that's a slippery slope as soon as you start targeting a group of individuals. You know, and it's, you know, you could put that towards anything, whether it be the Tea Party and the allegations of them being,
exactly.
you know, that's all the privacy issues that you really have to think about. I
wouldn't do that.
No, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't use it in that way. But we do have people within the city that we have, we know they are the highest potential for violent crime. They're most likely to be involved. We follow them. We follow their parole hearings. We follow any type of information that we get back
Do you follow
on
their
them.
social media accounts?
We don't get into that at this point in time. We don't have that capability, put it that way.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure as always, Larry.
Ernie Perry, the director of the Trenton Police Department. When we come back, that constitutional attorney that we've been talking about, we'll talk to him next.